Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium with a new microphone. You'll have to let me know if you appreciate this one better. I think that the audio quality, at least from the testing that I've done, is better, so at least in my opinion. But yeah, if there's complaints, I can switch back to the old mic, but I don't think we need that. Um, Today I'm here to talk about Regirock. You know, I've started some trios here. The Electabuzz Jinx Magmar trio, the Reggie trio, the trio of Flygon, Salamence, and whatever the third dragon type is. I guess Kingdra would be that. But in any case, we're here to talk about Regirock today. Get that off of our list. The reason why I'm talking about Regirock today is in fact because of a Discord server that I'm going to link down in the description that has to do with team building. And the team building challenge was to use Regirock. If you're familiar with it, it's called ADV Goofy Cult. It's not, I promise it's not dangerous. It's just a place where people go and build goofy teams and talk about them. So I invite you all to join that by checking the link in the description below. The Viability rankings has Regirock at 36th, which is pretty respectable. All the Reggies are just on that borderline, which is what BL stands for. I'm not accepting the ban list anymore. I can't do it. The boomer in me needs it to be borderline. But yeah, there you go. Right next to the Pokemon that completes the triad of Flygon and Salamence, Kingdra right there. In any case, decently respectable. Regirock is the least given the least love out of the Reggies on the Viability rankings. I believe it was also by a small margin the least liked on the poll that I did, which you can go back and watch my Registeel video if you want to see what the results of that were, or I think the post is still up on my channel. But in any case, my comment question for the day is, do you think that Regirock is the best physically defensive wall in ADV? And I know that it seems like the answer is going to be an astounding yes, because Regirock has a ridiculously high defense stat, which we're about to talk about. But I mean, keep in mind that that's not the only thing that makes a defensive Pokemon, right? HP is important, the type that you have is important, and any sort of moves like recovery or iron defense or things like that could be important as well. So I'm curious to see what you all think. And even if it's just a simple yes, Regirock is the best, then let me know that as well. So, this is me rehashing some stuff, maybe from my Cloyster Steelix video, if you've seen that, so we're going to go through it kind of quickly. These are the Pokemon with the highest defense stats in the game. I think the top 5. Of course, ignoring Ubers, but I believe that even Cloyster and Aggron, who are on the low end, tie with whoever the highest in Ubers is. Although, actually, does Deoxys defense even have 180? It might have 160, in which case we're just slamming. This is the highest in all of Pokemon here. Well, in this generation anyway. Yeah, wow. Hold on, maybe I should do it in Ubers. Deoxys defense. Yeah, only 160, so no caveats actually. These are just the highest. In any case, we've talked about HP, and I've probably mentioned in many other videos when we're talking about defensive Pokemon that HP is a really important part of the calculation. Essentially, and this is what Pinkacross says, that you can multiply your HP stat and your defense stat to get an effective bulk, which, and you should do it with the raw stats because HP scales differently than the defenses and attacks and speed and all that. In any case, we see Shuckle is obviously pulling up the rear. Cloyster is not great either, but Regirock has a pretty respectable 80. That's not fantastic. You would love to have 100 or higher, but 80 is decent. And with 200 defense to bolster that, I mean, I don't think you're going to complain that much. And while Shuckle has by far and away the highest defense and special defense stats in the game, its 20 base HP stat makes it not even that good a wall. Now, yes, it can live things like a Metagross Meteor Mash if it's not banded, and like, say, a Suicune Hydro Pump, but it gets 2-hit KO'd by a lot of things that you would not expect for a Pokemon with a 230 in both defense stats. That being said, the rest of these Pokemon, because their bulk is a little bit better distributed, well, Cloyster a little bit withstanding, they actually fare quite a bit better, and Regirock, of course, fares the best out of all of them, with the highest HP stat and then the second highest defense stat, tied with Steelix. So, we've done this comparison before in the Steelix video, taking a look at how certain defensive Pokemon do against Metagross, who is one of the most potent attackers in the tier. Not exactly the most potent, but definitely a great Pokemon for looking at physical benchmarks. And we'll take a look at with whatever configuration of EVs that you have. So I have the 0 HP, 0 defense, just in case you're trying to run a lot of speed on these guys. I wouldn't recommend it, but they're all taking actually not as much damage as you would expect. And then look at Regirock. I guess also Steelix, because they're pretty close. With max investment, it's not even a guaranteed 2-hit KO on either of them. And in fact, for Regirock's case, it's never a 2-hit KO if you have leftovers. For Steelix, I think it can be a 2-hit KO if Metagross gets high rolls on both, but it's not as likely. And then, of course, Aggron, thanks to its fantastic defensive type of Steel Rock, just takes 4 times damage and gets OHKO'd by everything. That being said, even if we take a look at Meteor Mash, Aggron is easily getting 2-hit KO'd, I think. I'm pretty sure, anyway, based on these sort of calcs. Although, I figured that Meteor Mash is not going to be as good for pushing my agenda on Regirock, so obviously we're not going to look at that. And then just some notes here that Regirock needs to have at least 216 HP or 96 HP with a plus defense nature to always live Meteor Mash from a choice-banded Metagross. But 216 HP is not that unreasonable to achieve. In fact, because of Regirock's lopsided bulk, if you want Regirock to take defensive hits the best, you will give it a lot of HP. And that's what I should probably note here. Look at the difference between going max HP versus going max defense is. So for max HP, it jumps down almost 12 points, right? Or is my math wrong? No, that's right, about 12 points. Whereas going with defense investment is about a 6-point jump. So the math is not exactly working out this way, but I would say that maximum HP investment is about twice as valuable to your defensive bulk as max defense investment. It's probably a little closer to like 1.5 times, but yeah, I mean, whatever. Somebody will do the math in the comment section for you. So, Regirock we've shown can take a hit, but can it deal the damage back? With 252 plus attack, Regirock deals in the ballpark of 48 to 57% to a choice band Metagross, which is a 91.8% chance to 2-hit KO. So about 8% of the time or so, you'll get 2 low rolls and not be able to kill the Metagross in 2 hits, which is not fantastic. This means that Regirock can 1v1 if the Metagross misses, or if Regirock catches the CB meta on the switch. So that's something to note. The next one we want to look at is Tyranitar. Earthquake will 2-hit KO a 4 HP Tyranitar, but 252 HP Tyranitar is generally not going to get 2-hit KO'd. It's only about a 6.6% chance to get there, and I believe that's not considering if the Tyranitar has... no, I think that is considering if the Tyranitar has leftovers. So, forgive me for about to spread some misinformation there. Though, Regirock has Superpower, which is a pretty powerful fighting type move. It's 120... Is it 120 base power this generation? I think it is. Could be 100. No, it's 120. Yeah, it's 120. I should never second guess myself on anything ever in life. But yeah, that is going to punch through a Tyranitar, and then Superpower is also kind of nice because it gives you a move to hit Blissey or Snorlax on switch. Now, granted, the drawback of Superpower is you get a -1 attack and -1 defense debuff for using it, so it's not very spammable considering that you're lowering your own attack, so you're going to do less damage on the follow-up than what you do now. This is why in modern generations, close combat is generally preferred to Superpower, because Pokemon that don't really care about their defenses and just want to spam a strong move, like they don't care if their defense stats are getting dropped, they can just keep spamming that 120 base power fighting move. And if that's how Superpower worked in this generation, oh my god, Regirock would be insane. Granted, the other Regis get it, but Regirock has the highest attack stats, so... HP Rock and Rock Slide are pretty threatening into flying-type Pokemon like Zapdos and Charizard and Moltres. And it's got pretty low drawbacks, though Rock Slide can miss, so keep that in mind. HP Rock doesn't miss, though, and we will have a discussion on whether you should be using HP Rock or Rock Slide later. But, yeah, I mean, Regirock is, all told, okay offensively. It's not the best. Like, not being able to 2-hit KO Metagross with Earthquake is a little bit tough, but there are a lot of decent Pokemon that can't really do that either. I think Aerodactyl could do it maybe if it had a plus attack nature, but it needs to run the plus speed, so Aerodactyl wouldn't be able to do it without a choice band. Let's see who else. Flygon probably is, I mean, it's in the same boat. Well, no, it's not in the same boat as Regirock because it has a stab, so never mind. I was about to slander Flygon for a moment there. But Swampert's probably in a similar boat. I think Swampert actually has a little bit more attack, 110, but it is not very frequently running max attack with an adamant nature, so I digress. Regirock has a bag of tricks, though, that can help it to do some things other than just hitting back hard. And there he is. He's a monster, a maverick, maybe, yelling at the Skarmory. Yeah, Skarmory's dizzy. I get dizzy when I'm in Aegis Cave and I can't find the freaking R rock. And to progress. Sorry, I need a comment on Aegis Cave. This is a song that I think is really nice, and it is nice on repeat, but it's only nice on repeat for so many hours. People who have played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon will know what I mean. In any case, sorry to get off on a tangent there. Thunder Wave is probably one of the best moves in the format. Gold Mason argues that it is the best move in the format. And I think that there's definitely legs to stand on for that. 100% accuracy, paralyzes the target unless it's a ground type, in which case ground types are immune to it. But something like a Skarmory can get paralyzed by Regirock, and then you can Rock Slide it down and Paraflinch to beat it. This is a very common strategy for certain Regirock sets, so keep that in mind. Counter is a move that will deal double damage back on a physical hit, or when you take a physical attack, I should say. So physical attackers such as Metagross and Metacham who try to 2-hit KO Regirock with super effective stab can be smashed on counterattack for upwards of 600 damage, which is obviously going to OHKO them. The idea is essentially that because Regirock has such, I mean, it has a decent HP stat and such high defense, it's going to live a lot of physical attacks, and then if it takes a bunch of damage, you just destroy back. There are some physical hits, and by some I mean I think literally just Metacham's Focus Punch that might kill Regirock if Metacham is choice banded, but maybe Slacking could as well. Although I don't know actually. That's a great question. Let's take a look at the calculator. We have the technology for this, but Regirock, say 252. We'll say 252 HP, no defense versus a Slacking. Focus Punch is a roll to one-hit KO, which is insane because Slacking has a monster attack stat, and it's not even guaranteed. Granted, it is slightly favored, 62.5%. But in any case, that is quite interesting. But you can counter back on pretty much every other physical attack in the game, and also Hidden Power. Granted, I don't know how many Pokemon are going to be using Hidden Power against Regirock. It is weak to some of them, like Water and Grass. Water is extremely rare. Grass is extremely common, but a lot of Pokemon that have HP Grass will probably hit Regirock with a different move, like a Water Stab move or an Electric Stab move in the case of Zapdos, since that does more damage, in fact. Think about like base 95, that's what Thunderbolt is in this game, times 1.5 for stab is effectively a base power of 142.5, whereas Hidden Power super effective is 70 times 2, which is 140, so Thunderbolt's slightly stronger. Now granted, most of the rolls are overlapping, so it's not like oh my god, you're throwing super duper hard if you're clicking a Hidden Power instead of a Thunderbolt, but yeah, I mean Thunderbolt's just better and also has the chance to paralyze, which you would like to get. So in any case, I don't know if the Hidden Power comes up that often for Regirock, but it will get hit by a lot of super effective Meteor Mash / fighting moves, and Earthquake, so keep that in mind. Explosion, I mean, we know what Explosion is at this point in Generation 3, but if you don't, it's a 250 base power normal type move that halves your opponent's defense stat when it calculates damage at the cost of you losing your entire Pokemon. Against special attackers and setup sweepers, Regirock can just destroy them and erase their progress, which is really, really nice. It's really important to identify when you can trade for one of your opponent's key win conditions, and Regirock is, unless you're Curse, which is, we'll talk about that set as well, but unless you're that particular set, Regirock is not really a win condition. It's mostly designed to trade, and that's kind of the thesis of this video, is that Regirock is one of the best counter punchers in the format, meaning that it can take a hit and then dish the damage back, especially with, well, counter and explosion. But we'll go on. These are some of the sets that Smogon suggests for Regirock. Physical Attacker is probably I don't know if it's the most common anymore. I think it used to be very common if you saw Regirock at all. But the idea with this set is that you're going to use Rock Slide, Focus Punch, Thunder Wave, Explosion. Your Thunder Wave, particularly you want to hit Skarmory, but Thunder Wave is just great to hit anything with. And then you're going to Rock Slide, and then the Para Chance plus the Flinch Chance from Rock Slide can give you a lot of free turns with your Regirock. And even if Regirock doesn't get the free turn out of it, it's got such high defenses that it can stomach taking hits anyway. In the case of Skarmory, which is one of your most high value targets to go for this Paraflinch on, you are hoping that you can steal some turns so that it can't get all of its spikes up. It's kind of the same, if you saw my Registeel video, it's kind of the same idea where you paralyze the spiker and then you beat it down, and then you could spin with something later. But Regirock is a little bit more consistent at stealing turns because of the flinch chance. Now, alternatively, you could run counter instead of Thunder Wave, and in that case, you might want to run HP Rock. And I guess this is about as good a time as any to have the Rock Slide versus HP Rock discussion. So, when you're deciding whether you're going to use Rock Slide or HP Rock, the first question is, are you going to use Hidden Power on something, like something else? Like, for example, Regirock might want Hidden Power Bug to hit Celebi, also to hit Claydol, though I guess with counter, it's kind of like not super duper necessary to have HP Bug for Claydol as well. Yes, the Claydol can identify that your only move to really hit it is counter, so it could go for Psychic instead. But like Psychic is not doing that much to Regirock. Psychic is I've seen this sometimes happen where a Claydol will stay in and click Psychic against, say, like a flying type, like we'll say Zapdos, for example, expecting like, oh, I can 1v1 because the flying type can't touch me, and then they do like 20 damage max. Probably not even. It's probably closer to like 12 with the Psychic. Like, Psychic is not a strong move for Claydol. It has 70 special attack that you are usually not investing in. So, like, keep that in mind. In any case, HP Bug is for Celebi, of course. If you wanted that, then obviously you don't have a choice. You have to run Rock Slide. But let's say you've decided, okay, I'm not using Hidden Power for coverage. So, should you use Rock Slide or HP Rock? I think there are 3 things to consider. The first is damage rolls. Now, these two moves are extremely similar in base power. Rock Slide 75 and HP Rock is 70. But if you are looking at a calculator and you're seeing, okay, I don't have a guaranteed KO with HP Rock, but if I used Rock Slide instead, it would guarantee the KO. Or whatever threshold it is, a 2-hit KO, a 3-hit KO, whatever. That is probably a reason why you would want to use Rock Slide over HP Rock. But that it isn't super duper common, and because they're so close in base power, you can generally overcome that with changing your investment around. But I don't know, perhaps there's a case where Regirock is getting a guaranteed 2-hit KO with Adamant Rock Slide 252, but it doesn't quite have the guarantee with HP Rock on something. And if that's the case, then Rock Slide might be worth using over HP Rock. Second thing that you should consider is, do you have the chance to get the flinch with Rock Slide? Which necessitates that you're going to be faster than your opponents. So if you're not faster, and keep in mind that things like paralysis can help you to get the speed that you need, then you're generally not that advantaged for going for Rock Slide. We've discussed about the damage rolls, and if the damage rolls are close enough that it doesn't really matter, then you're almost never getting the secondary effect from Rock Slide on a slow Pokemon. So, you know, Pokemon like Regirock, Steelix, Donphan, I've used that as well with Hidden Power Rock. Just makes a little bit more sense. Considering that because Rock Slide has the 10% chance to miss, like that's really why you would want to use HP Rock. And then the third thing to consider is PP. Hidden Power has more PP than Rock Slide, I'm pretty sure, in any case. Let me just verify. Yes, that's right. Rock Slide only has 16 PP, whereas Hidden Power has... Geez, I didn't have any Hidden Powers on that team when I was checking. There we go. 24, so you're going to have 8 extra PP, and if that's a consideration for you, then you should go with Hidden Power Rock. But if none of those are a consideration for you, then I would probably say still go Hidden Power Rock because you don't necessarily want to miss. And over the course of many games, the expected output of damage for HP Rock is going to be slightly higher than Rock Slide, considering that if you don't get flinch chances, and with, again, like with Regirock, who's pretty slow, not very common to get the flinch chances. So I hope that explained that well enough. I think I maybe circled back and around in some of that, but I hope that was clear. Curse is another idea for Regirock, particularly if you want your Regirock to be some kind of win condition, or maybe like a mid-game progress maker for certain teams. The idea with Curse is that you're going to boost your attack and your defense at the cost of your speed, but oh well, whatever. Regirock is slow as dirt anyway. Probably why it's called Regirock, right? And not Regifast. Wonder if they'll ever make a Regifast one day. Yes, I know about Regiolecki. So yeah, Curse with Rock Slide or HP Rock, Earthquake, and Explosion. So this particular set, if you're not going to replace one of these moves with Hidden Power Bug, then I think Hidden Power Rock has a great argument here. Curse, you're going to lower your speed. You're never outspeeding anything after you're set up, so you might as well go for HP Rock for the higher consistency and like not very much cost in attack difference. But maybe there's some sort of +1 or +2 calc where Rock Slide is better for you than Hidden Power Rock is. So I guess if you find such a calc, then keep that in mind. And then Explosion or Rest. Explosion's definitely going to be better if you're trying to do that mid-game, like breaking through a defensive core idea. Whereas Rest is going to be better if you're trying to be the win condition for your team. So keep that sort of in mind, that this one set, one move change can kind of alter Regirock's role on the team. And then Choice Band Regirock. So this is running HP Rock, Superpower, Earthquake, and Explosion. I think that there's an argument that you could swap one or two of these moves, particularly Earthquake or Superpower, or potentially both, for other moves if you want, say, Hidden Power Bug. Again, it's a consideration if you're trying to hit Celebi. Then you can simply go with Rock Slide, have HP Bug, and then say, I don't know, Superpower, so you can still hit Tyranitar hard, or Earthquake, so you can still hit Metagross hard. But yeah, let's dive into what Smogon has to say about this set. While Regirock's stats might seem more defensive oriented, it does have some great attacking moves. I don't know if I like the way that they phrase that. In any case, Superpower works much like Focus Punch, but it requires less prediction and can be used several times before Regirock is forced to switch out. So, I mean, using it several times, the big drawback with Superpower is that you, like I previously explained, is that you're lowering your attack stat. So it's not like super duper spammable. You might be able to get away with clicking it a second time before having to switch. But I guess if the argument is, once you use Focus Punch and your revealed Choice Band, then your opponent's counterplay is like extremely easy around that. But I don't know if I would paint the picture that Superpower is more spammable than Focus Punch. I think it's like arguably just as spammable, if not maybe slightly more. But in any case, Hidden Power Rock is superior to Rock Slide on this set as it does more damage. Regirock is too slow to take advantage of the latter's flinch. Sometimes I wonder if the quality control on this is like, or is it the quality control being strange on this, or is it me not reading this correctly? But the reason why Hidden Power Rock is superior to Rock Slide is not because it does more damage, but because you, over the course of many turns, Hidden Power Rock is going to not miss as much as Rock Slide. In fact, it won't miss at all for Regirock. Unless your opponent gets an evasion boost somehow, like they're illegally hacking the game. But in any case, the only notable Pokemon that Regirock outspeeds is Snorlax, who is hit harder by Superpower, which is true. Although, you run into the issue with Superpower again, where if you're lowering your attack, you might not be able to break through the Snorlax, and if the Snorlax has Rest, then that could be nasty for you. The only reason to run Rock Slide would be to run Hidden Power Bug, which OHKOs Celebi, good to know. It surprises other grass types and does decent damage to Claydol. However, it is mostly inferior to the other moves. Which, again, I mean, I understand trying to teach people about this Rock Slide versus Hidden Power, but like, I don't think that Rock Slide is wholly like terrible on Regirock. I mean, if it was a wholly terrible move, then wouldn't we be running Hidden Power Rock on Tyranitar whenever possible? Wouldn't we be trying to run it on Metagross and Salamence? But I digress. I mean, the reason why we don't, one, is that sometimes they want other hidden powers, and two, the flinch chance is a major consideration for Rock Slide. It is effectively higher expected damage output if you consider that anytime you flinch basically doubles your damage. Well, 90% of the time. But while the previous set, I think it was Max Attack, right? Yeah, Max Attack is serviceable for Regirock. I think that there's some value in putting a little bit more special defense in Regirock. So this is the first time we're seeing its base stats if you're not familiar with it. While Regirock has the 200 defense stat, which is monstrous, it also has a 100 special defense stat, which is actually pretty good. So the concept with this extra Spadef is that we will live a Suicune Hydro Pump even if it's 252 modest. So why we're doing that is we are going to lead with this Regirock, the Choice Band. And Suicune is a decently common enough lead that I think it is worth it to have some sort of tech for Suicune. So instead of talking about this set as the moves that it is, like the moves that it has and what you should be doing to, or what it OHKOs and 2-hit KOs, I want to talk about like a lead flowchart idea for this. So I'm talking about the common leads of the tier. I think like I've kind of mentioned before, like the 6 common leads: Skarm, Tyranitar, Zapdos, Salamence, Metagross, and Suicune. There are definitely more leads than that. Jinx, for example, if it is used, it is most likely going to be a lead. You'll sometimes see lead Dugtrio. You'll sometimes see a fighting type in the lead, but I'm just talking about like the ones that are really common. On most of the sample teams, you're going to see a lead one of these. But of course, you can lead anything that you want, and maybe I could make a video talking about how you choose your lead, but I think Colin already has a video on that, and I might link that in the description if you're interested. In any case, the flowchart kind of goes that this Regirock set can't really do much to Skarmory. You can boom, but you're not even going to kill Skarm if you do that. I think you'll do somewhere in the ballpark of like 60 to 70%, which is not nearly enough to like lose your entire Regirock for, in my opinion. So, and you're not faster than Skarm, so you're not going to steal its spike turn either. So, if Skarm is the lead, then you want to switch to something that impedes Skarm's progress. You might see on a lot of Regirock teams a Magneton, and that's not on accident. Regirock really struggles to beat Skarm if it doesn't have exactly Thunder Wave, Rock Slide. So, yes, Magneton is often paired with Regirock so we can eliminate the Skarmory, and then Regirock can come in and do whatever it needs to do thereafter. Although I don't know if I don't know if you'll see it too commonly with lead Regirock. You probably do. I mean, most Regirock teams are probably going to have a Magneton, although mine doesn't, because I hate Magneton. That's okay though. Tyranitar, superpower is going to OHKO pretty much every Tyranitar. I think literally every Tyranitar that you're going to see on ladder, unless somebody is running something diabolical like max defense. But even that one is probably getting OHKO'd by this. Not doing the calc because who cares. Tyranitar is almost always going to switch out versus the Regirock, because most people, unless like you're playing against somebody who has no clue what Regirock does, they're gonna know that Superpower or Brick Break or even Focus Punch is coming, and switch to a Pokemon that can resist the fighting move, or at least a Mon that has a really high defense stat like Swampert and can handle Regirock's other options. In that case, you may actually want to Boom, because you'll Boom and destroy whatever the switch-in is, and most of the time it's not going to be a switch-in that is going to take a Boom all that well. Like Swampert's going to just fold to it. If they go to, say, maybe they go to, say, like, would be a good switch in for a fighting type move that's not Gengar, because we'll get to that in a second. I'm not sure. Maybe Skarmory could be a switch, in which case that's not fantastic, but you do get the explosion on the Skarmory for a lot of damage, and if you happen to have Magneton on your team or some other Pokemon that can at least force Skarmory out, then you can avoid having to deal with hazards so soon. Another common switch, well, I don't know how common I would say it is into Regirock, but a common switch into a predicted Boom is Gengar, because it's immune to it. You could HP Rock instead, and HP Rock will destroy Gengar, especially with Sand being up, since the Tyranitar was their lead in this particular scenario. So you could go for that as well, and that is fantastic. That's like Christmas morning if you predict a Gengar coming in with HP Rock, because you can save your Regirock and Boom on something else later, which is that's just great when that happens. Against Zapdos, HP Rock is going to break Substitute, and it'll usually 2-hit KO the Zapdos. I think in theory Zapdos could run enough defense to not make it a guaranteed 2-hit KO after leftovers, but in practice Zapdos is almost Zapdos is not running that much defense. So HP Rock is going to OHKO any low investment Salamence as well, and you don't have to worry about Intimidate lowering your attack, because Regirock's ability Clear Body blocks any sort of stat debuffs. So Mence is not a great pivot into Regirock, because it's not even going to get the Intimidate off. I want to note as well that moves like Sand Attack are also not going to work on Regirock. So Regirock is actually not wholly terrible at dealing with Sand Attack Ninjask. Now, it is pretty terrible at dealing with the Marowak that comes in afterwards, so I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that you have your Regirock be your dedicated Ninjask answer, but I digress. Metagross is going to not quite kill the Regirock with a Choice Banded Meteor Mash, and is certainly going to get OHKO'd back by counter. Now, there can be some issues, like if Meteor Mash crits, there's just nothing you can do about that. And if Meteor Mash misses and you go for counter, well, then you've revealed your sort of idea here. But one thing that I like about this set, and you'll notice that I have counter here instead of Earthquake, the reason being that, I mean, like, the goal, I think, of Regirock is not to smoke something on switch in and get a lot of predictions. It's to trade up early, or at least like do a 5v5, and if you might be more prepared, depending on your team, to win that 5v5 than your opponent, and you can definitely structure your team that way. We'll see if I did a good job of that or not. I think I could have done a better job, I'll be honest. But counter is great for that sort of idea because there are a lot of leads that you can counter and just get the kill on, and then you'll have the Regirock probably at not super duper high HP that you might be able to boom on something later. Say if they have a Snorlax and you can get the Regirock in on revenge kill, well, there you go. You've got a boom off, and your opponent can't do anything to stop it. So that could be great. And even if you just end up booming, like say on the Suicune, you survive its Hydro Pump and then you OHKO it with Explosion, then you're kind of okay. Now, I do think there's a little bit of risk involved in that, since the Suicune might opt to substitute on turn 1. Although, I do think that substitute on lead Suicune is not super duper common. You're most likely going to see offensive Suicune with 3 attacks and either 3 attacks Calm Mind or 2 attacks and Calm Mind and Rest. But possibly Roar instead of Rest, but in any case. Most of the time I find that the Suicune likes to go for the Water move or the Calm Mind into Regirock, assuming that Regirock's best move to hit it is Rock Slide, and like that Suicune is just going to kill the Regirock in 1 or 2 turns anyway. So this is the whole concept behind the special defense. And then the fighting types, you can counter, you can boom, or you could switch depending on what Pokemon it is, and then depending on what you sort of feel like your team can handle. The good news with Regirock is that aside from Skarm, pretty much every other lead, if you're like, my team is really bad into this, you usually have an option to just trade immediately. Like say for example your team's not good into Tar, which I don't know if I would recommend that you have a team that's not good into Tar. Then you can just go for the superpower, and if the Tar stays in, then you guarantee you don't have to deal with it anymore. And if it switches, well, that's fine. You can try to eliminate it later with the Regirock. And then yeah, as for the speed, I mean, the only mons that you're really going to outspeed are Snorlax and Fortress. There are a handful of other ones, technically, like Dusclops, but, like, I mean, functionally, those are the only 2 that really matter. And then here's the team structure. So I know you see that second Pokemon there. I'm going to get to it. Trust. This is Regice Fori. Regirock is going to try to get an early elimination so that the rest of the team can play 5v5. In some lead matchups and against some teams, maybe you want to save the Regirock so you can boom later. It's really hard to make that decision based on like the limited knowledge that you get on turn 1, but there are definitely situations where maybe you don't want to take the trade with Regirock right away, and then you'll find some use for it later in the game. And that's just going to have to come with some knowledge of matchups that you see with as you play this sort of team, or if you ever play with this sort of lead Regirock idea. And also you may just have to memorize your opponent's teams on ladder. I've definitely had some games where it's like, okay, I've played this person before, and what I've realized is if I save Regirock for later in the game, then I actually have a better matchup than if I trade the Regirock against their lead Metagross. That is, again, a consideration that you'll have to make if you play this team. If you're just testing it out, I would generally just do what the flowchart said to do, but you can always switch the Regirock if you don't think that it's worth trading it. Although this team, I'll be honest, if you see us lead Suicune, you want to trade the Regirock. This team does not have a great switch into Suicune. I mean, Starmie is okay, but it's not necessarily the best long term. Fortress is going to check Snorlax and provide spikes and boom support. In fact, if you look at the team paste here, I actually don't have Rapid Spin on Fortress at all. It's kind of strange. You almost always see Rapid Spin on Fortress because, well, that's the thing that makes it like usable over Skarmory, is that you have spin support. But my argument is that the boom support is warranted enough for Fortress to be on this team. Yes, Regirock and Weezing have Explosion as well, but, and we'll talk about Weezing's Explosion in a moment here, but, you know, if Regirock's gonna die basically turn 1, and maybe you need Weezing to handle something else, then what's gonna be the thing that stops a Suicune in the back or a Snorlax in the back from getting out of hand? And my thought is like, well, let's boom the Fortress and get there, you know? And we have Starmie for speed support instead. We're running a modest offensive Starmie, and it's going to be, of course, running Surf, Ice Beam, and Thunderbolt. This is, I believe, the set that ABR is a fan of, although I think that sometimes he'll switch out the Rapid Spin for Recover. We have a Pursuit T-Wave Tyranitar. That's goal is to eliminate Gengar and spread some paralysis, which can be important because we have Sub-CM Jirachi as our win condition. And Sub-CM Jirachi is only just a point faster than Max Speed Tyranitar. So, not quite fast enough to really threaten a lot of the, like, you know, the faster Pokemon, like your other base 100s. But any sort of Thunder Wave can just absolutely triple them, and Jirachi might be able to simply just destroy them. So that's the kind of idea. You want to eliminate Swampert, Dugtrio, and Blissey before you rely on Jirachi. Reason being, you know, Dugtrio, of course, is trapping Jirachi and threatening to kill it with Earthquake. We have enough defense investment that we will generally live a Dugtrio Earthquake, but yeah, if you can't kill it back with Ice Punch or you don't get the 20% freeze, then you're in trouble. I think you need plus. I think +1 can do it. +2 is sometimes needed for the guarantee. Actually, I'm not sure. I think +1 is sufficient in many cases, but we don't have any Spatak investment in Jirachi, so keep that in mind. Blissey, of course, can be a problem for us, although depending, like if you have a lot of if you have 3 layers of spikes and sand up, and maybe you have a Calm Mind boost before the Blissey comes in, or maybe your substitute up, you do have the 101 HP subs, which can afford you additional turns versus the Blissey, but even like at +6, Jirachi is not doing quite as much as you would hope against Blissey. I think it's like, it might not even be a 3-hit KO or a 2-hit KO. Let me check that. +6 Thunderbolt. Okay, I lied. I think we actually do have a little bit of a special attack investment into this Jirachi, but not very much. So +6 versus Blissey. Yeah, we're doing 45% max with Thunderbolt. It's not great. You're gonna have to fish for paralysis or crit luck to even win against the Blissey, and then God forbid that it's a Calm Mind Blissey. That's gonna be rough. But yeah, this is the team. I did say I would talk about Weezing, and I think I will right now. So this Weezing set is something that I came up with, and I'm doing this because there has been one commenter in particular, Weezing Fan 64, who has been asking for a Weezing video, and well, I wanted to do this video about Regirock because it's responding to ADV Goofy Colts challenge, but I do have a Weezing on the team. And I went through the trouble of making my own set for it. So, and I know that there are people who want to see the Weezing, particularly Weezing Fan 64. So, here's my compromise. I'm going to show this Weezing set and explain a little bit about it. And I will do a Weezing video at some point in the not too distant future. Probably on a Superman team, because Weezing functions really well on that. This is not a Superman team, mind you, but I think that Weezing actually pairs decently well with Regirock because it's immune to Earthquake and has fighting resistance, and that's also why I have Tyranitar on the team, or rather, why I think that it synergizes well with this team. But we have a pretty offensive Weezing here with mostly special attack investment. Of course, some HP, but we also have some speed, and then a kind of strange 40 with a minus nature and attack, but of course, what we're going to explain. So, Fire Blast. This is going to do 56.8% minimum to Skarmory, which means that as long as we hit twice, we'll KO or 2-hit KO a Skarmory, even if it protects in between our Fire Blasts. We have an approximately a 50-50 to 2-hit KO utility Celebi outside of Sand, which is interesting. Though, even better if we have the Sand up, of course, it's going to guarantee it. Or virtually guarantee it. And I point out utility Celebi in particular because that is the least likely to have Psychic. That being said, it might possibly have Psychic, and that could be ruinous for Weezing, though I do believe that this Weezing set will survive a no investment Psychic from Celebi. Although I should check that just to make sure. Celebi utility. Yes, we survive it literally on 1 HP if it gets the max roll. Well, that's the 40 special attack Celebi, which is the standard set. So keep that in mind. We will 2-hit KO every Metagross. I mean, sometimes Metagross could run special defense, but nobody ever really does that in OU. It gets way too much value out of speed and attack and HP investment for you to do that, so you won't see that very commonly. Hidden Power Grass is mostly to hit Swampert. I mean, almost entirely to hit Swampert, I should say. You'll deal 64 minimum to a defensive Pert, and we have a chance to OHKO a no-bulk Swampert after spikes. No bulk Swampert would generally be the Salak Endeavor Swampert, who, if they ever get, if they're ever feeling froggy and wanting to switch into the Weezing, and you catch them with the HP Grass, then that could be a very bad day for them. An Explosion. So this is why we have the attack investment that we do. We're going to deal 94% minimum to Modest Blissey, which means that it has a 62.5% chance to straight up die if we just get a high enough roll. Or if it doesn't die, then we can get Tyranitar in to set the Sand and guarantee the KO, because Sand, of course, activates before the leftovers, deals 6.25%. So Boom plus Sand is always going to kill Blissey. And then sometimes you don't even necessarily need to do all that. You can just simply boom and the Sand will already be up, and then Blissey will die. Then you don't necessarily have to go to Tyranitar to follow up. So that's quite good. And if something disastrous happened and you lost your Tyranitar and they cleared the weather, and now you boom on the Blissey, but you don't get the roll, you can at the very least go to something that will deal at least 12% to Blissey, force the switch, and if there's a spike up, it's dead, and that's great for you. So that's sort of the concept behind this. You could obviously run a little bit less attack investment. You could even run less speed investment. This speed is particularly to outspeed a minus speed Claydol, although that's not a super duper common thing right now. Most people are using the utility Claydol, which is running a minus special attack nature. But the point of doing this is so that we can mostly speed creep the Swampert and Tyranitar sets that don't run a lot of speed investment. They may try to speed creep each other. They're sitting at around 160, 161. They might be creeping back and forth a little bit. 168 is going to clear almost all of that, so that's quite nice. Again, if you only care about being faster than Blissey, you can certainly go a little bit slower and put more of it into HP. HP is going to be the most valuable thing to you because HP actually scales lower than defense for Weezing because it has a monstrous 120. So if you want to improve your physical bulk with the Weezing, go all the way to max HP and before you do anything with the defense. You could also get a little bit of special defense if you would like. I don't think there's anything that's too that matters too much. I think Weezing is 2-hit KO'd very commonly by a lot of the strong special hits, so it's kind of a non-issue. But with that, we are going to go on to the battles. So let's go ahead and get that. Switch the scene, and then, you know what? This is the last Regi. I know I've used this theme before, but let's get the Regi themes in here. You know what? Let's get the Oras version. Why not? Why not? Yeah, that's nice. Alrighty, so here we are. We're up against Blissey Used Return, who is somebody who I've had a little bit of a conversation with on the ladder. I took a look at one of their teams and thought it was an interesting idea for a team. In fact, it may be inspired a Snorlax team that was shown not too long ago. But, and maybe I should have credited them a little bit more, although I do think I made some significant enough changes that the team doesn't play quite the same. In any case, I don't believe that this is that team for them. Or maybe it is, and if it is, I'll let you know. But we have a lead Tyranitar versus Regirock, and against the Tyranitar, I tend to be booming, because Tyranitar doesn't want to stay in usually, like I kind of elucidated before, so I get rid of the Swampert, which is great for my Tyranitar in the back. But as I have Fortress, I'm just going to stack the spikes. I assume that with the first 3 revealed that this is just going to be like a big 5 team. So, yeah, I'm simply just going to come in with the Tyranitar, Pursuit Trap the Gengar. I do 50% to it, which is like really, really nasty for the Gengar. Even if I didn't quite get the roll there, if it was a roll even, the Gengar was going to die to sand. So that's really nice for me. And this is the reason why I use Thunder Wave on Tyranitars, so that I can catch something like Jirachi. We don't have Crunch on this Tyranitar, notably, but we do have Earthquake, and I believe Flamethrower. I've gone a little bit back and forth about whether I should use Earthquake or Focus Punch on this Tyranitar, as my opponent forfeits here. But I do think that Earthquake is kind of nice. It's a little bit strange because I have no attack investment. In fact, I have a minus attack nature. But Earthquake is specifically to hit Jirachi. And especially the sub-CM variant of Jirachi, which is in fact the Jirachi that I have. I have a variant of that has Thunderbolt and Ice Punch rather than Psychic and Fire. And I know that Psychic Fire doesn't really hit Tyranitar that well, but anytime Jirachi gets like a substitute and I can't break it, then that's really, really tough. Especially if I was relying on Flamethrower to be the move that breaks it. So I've opted for Earthquake on this Tyranitar specifically to do that. And there are some interactions where clicking Earthquake is better for Tyranitar, particularly against like a rock type if you see one. There are not a lot of rock types, frankly, like especially ones that get hit by Earthquake, but I guess opposing Tyranitar could be one of them, and it's your best move to click into that. But I do like this sort of idea with the Thunder Wave, because yes, while Gengar, like, if Gengar stays in and Pursuit's not going to kill it, that could be bad I think that Thunder Waving the Gengar, though, is just about as good as killing it with Crunch. Because a paralyzed Gengar is really, really tough. Because like, Gengar excels because of its speed, and getting rid of that is brutal. In any case, we're going to go on to the next game. Lead Tyranitar versus lead Regirock. Once again, am I going to boom? Yes, I am, and I'm going to eliminate a Dawn Fan. It's quite nice, and we're going to see Skarmory come in, and I'm going to go to Starmie. The idea behind Starmie there is that it would be pretty good into a lead Tyranitar. If it's a physical Tyranitar, it's usually not going to kill me unless it's Choice Band. And it'll also be really good into Starmie, or Skarmory if that switches in. I'm going to set up a Spike, and my opponent's simply going to go to Magneton, who Thunderbolts and gets a crit! But crit's not enough, and I get the kill with Earthquake. I mean, that's about what I expected to happen anyway, because HP Fire does a lot to Fortress. It can kill it, but only 25% of the time. In fact, Fortress is favored to live an unboosted Magneton HP Fire. I say unboosted because there used to be a time when Magneton would run Charcoal to increase its HP Fire damage so that it could get a more favorable roll against Fortress, but that time is long since passed. You don't really see that anymore because Skarmory is so common and such a strong Pokemon for this. In any case, I'll take the Thunderbolt crit because that's usually about the damage that HP Fire would be doing. I do get the whole Magneton though, and I can go to Weezing, and Weezing would be great against a physical Tyranitar, but this is in fact a Pursuit Tar, so I'm just gonna have to sack it. Because yeah, if I switched, I would have died anyway. The crit there probably mattered, actually, but whatever. I've got the burn. That's all I need. And I've got Tyranitar in now. I think this time I actually had Brick Break. I was swapping back and forth between Brick Break, Focus Punch, and Earthquake. But I guess it's going to work out a little better for me because Brick Break is going to hit the Blissey. I mean, not super duper well. In fact, I predict the Blissey to come in. But maybe that was foolish of me. I should have just went for another Flamethrower. I'll bring Fortress in, who doesn't quite die. I'm in against Gyarados. Gyarados goes for Dragon Dance, but I'm going to boom, that's perfect for me. If I didn't get the drop, I would not have died. But this affords me the opportunity to go to Starmie to try to get the revenge kill. Reason why I went to Starmie is because my last Pokemon can't beat Gyarados. But Starmie should live an Earthquake, depending on... It might depend on the Gyarados, maybe. But it won't live Double Edge. But if the Gyarados goes for Double Edge, then the Starmie will kill it on recoil. I can go to Tyranitar here. And just Brick Break away on the Blissey. And yeah, it doesn't do very much. So maybe this is the reason why you shouldn't use Brick Break on this set. But in any case, I can Thunder Wave the Blissey. I think the idea is I'm going to be playing for my last Mon to win the game here. Or I could get a lot of full paras, and then potentially I just Brick Break through the Blissey. But I think... Okay, I see. There I will go to the Jirachi. I just really cannot afford to go Jirachi if the Blissey Thunder Waved. So... I wanted to condition my opponent to not go for Thunder Wave. They don't. And they're actually going to switch out, which is great for me because I can call it mine. And, yeah, now I just win. So, this is looking like almost a Mono Blissey with, or it has to be a Mono Blissey, Wish, Soft Boiled, Thunder Wave. I wonder if they have Seismic Toss or, Ice Beam, though. Because I think that if you just Seismic Toss away, then eventually the Blissey could just win that, because I'm not going to be able to break it significantly with my Thunderbolt damage. But I do manage to get a crit on the Blissey as it switches in with Brick Break, and that simplifies the game significantly for me. that means I'm basically guaranteed to win there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this Blissey had mono Ice Beam, and if that was the case, then it was absolutely cooked against the Jirachi, who would eventually run it out of soft boileds and win the game. Or get the freeze with Ice Punch. Alright. Sorry, that was the team builder. On to the third game. Metagross versus Regirock. This time, okay. So, this Regirock is designed that it can take a CB Meteor Mash from the Metagross and then kill back with counter. For whatever reason, maybe I had already played this person before, or maybe I wanted to try out a different line or something. I decided that I did not want to stay in with my Regirock, and I went to Fortress. And this is something that you can afford to do if you have a particularly good switch into a lead. And Fortress is is good enough against Metagross that I can switch in and start setting some spikes. Although the Metagross gets the raise, which is like really, really bad for me. Which causes me to go for Earthquake, in fact. The idea that I had was, if this is a Choice Band Metagross, I would rather get it low enough that I can kill it with Starmie than get my spikes up. Because yes, while spikes are really important, like, it is also important to not lose to a lead Metagross. So I went for Earthquake there to start getting the damage on the Metagross, and my opponent goes immediately to Magneton and loses the Magneton for that, which is perfect. Alright, Celebi is in. I'm going to break its sub with Hidden Power Bug. If it had HP Fire, me staying in was going to just lose anyway. But I guess I just called that he didn't have it. Kind of a crazy maneuver by me. But yeah, that Fortress is almost back to max health. And my opponent has Regirock of their own. Interesting. They're going to switch around here as my Fortress goes for spikes. Goes for Ice Beam. I don't know if they're like really desperate to get the freeze or if that was just an over prediction. But this allows me to get 3 layers of spikes, and my Fortress is still pretty healthy. I could have boomed there, but I decided that going Starmie is probably better for me, because I can threaten to do a lot of damage to Swampert. I actually get a crit there, which is perfect for me, because then I can kill it. Had I not got that crit, I probably would have had to switch to Starmie, but in any case, Celebi will come in. I can Ice Beam it for a lot of damage. It goes for Giga Drain, doesn't get very much HP back, and I'll simply go to Tyranitar. So the issue here with the Celebi is that it's too low. It's going to die to all layers of spikes, but I'm going to Tyranitar because it's actually less valuable for my team, given these last 3 mons, than anything else. And I can just set up the sand pretty easily, so... The Salamence is going to finish off with a Brick Break. It's revealed HP Flying and Brick Break, which is interesting. I feel like a lot of DD Menses are doing that nowadays, which is strange, but in any case, I miss my Will-O-Wisp on Metagross, which is really bad for me. I take a Meteor Mash for a lot of damage, but I go for Fire Blast, which puts the Metagross down to 4%. It's dead to switching into Spikes. It also gets the roll to kill my Fortress, which is really, really not cool. But this does allow me to get into Jirachi and have essentially a free turn. My opponent's actually going to switch to Regirock. I guess anticipating that my Jirachi would be able to do something really, really nasty to him if he stayed in. I'm going to go for HP Rock because the most dangerous thing that my opponent can do in my mind is go to Salamence and get a bunch of boosts. They're going to try to stay in and 1v1 my Regirock, but it's not going to pan out for them. In fact, they would, even if they went for Superpower again, they would not kill because they're at -1, and then I could kill their Regirock. And then they would have to come in with Salamence, DD, and avoid the Regirock hitting it with an HP Rock, which basically, I mean, essentially they're going to need 1 or 2 full paras here to even have a chance. And then my Jirachi is bulky enough, it should live an Earthquake from the Salamence and then kill back with Ice Punch. So, generally speaking, this was an alright game for me. Also, arguably, I got the worst luck, so... like with that Meteor Mash raise at the beginning, missing the Will-O-Wisp. They got the roll to kill my Fortress. So that was, you know, if we're arguing luck here, it was me who was the one who was unlucky. In fact. All right, this is going to be the last game. I do have a bunch of replays using this kind of team. I think I'm going to save some of those replays for talking about team building and how I made changes on this particular team. If you're interested in that sort of thing, let me know and I'll probably push that out. If I don't get a lot of comments on it, then I may just like table the idea. But if I do get a lot of comments, then I'll go for it right away. Lead Regirock versus Lead Zapdos. Of course I'm going to be going for HP Rock against Lead Zapdos because I do not want to let it get a substitute and Baton Pass back. Registeel is going to come in and Toxic into my Fortress switch, who simply can just go for spikes. So this is sort of the reason why I like Thunder Wave on Fortress rather than, I should say Thunder Wave on Registeel rather than Toxic. But ooh, I actually have Wish on this Jirachi this time. We'll see which paste I end up putting in. I know I made a lot of changes to this team over the course of the initial concept to building it. But in any case, Jirachi is going kind of stupid against this team right now. T-Bolt is not quite going to get the kill on Suicune, but had that roar brought me into Tyranitar, my opponent would have lost their entire Suicune there. So fortunate for my opponent that I didn't have the rolls, the Para, or the roar into Tyranitar. In any case, I can play to beat down the Suicune, get it down to 25% as I boom, and they're going to just decide to sack the Suicune there so that they can get a Machamp in. Interesting. I'll go for Surf as the Machamp bulks up. I'll go for another Surf, and I get a critical hit to finish it off. Okay. That sucks, but had I got the Surf damage there, I probably put it low enough that like I could go to Jirachi and kill it. But I get paired on the T-Bolt there, which is not great. I go for Thunder Wave of my own as Claydol switches in. And then I'm going to switch to Fortress, who should be able to 1v1 Claydol. Although we're going to see a switch to Registeel, obviously, so I'm going to get my Spike up first. I'm going to go for Earthquake into the Registeel, and I get a crit, which is very fortunate. Causes my opponent to actually switch to Claydol on an Earthquake. And then they're going to switch to Zapdos on an HP Bug. But all the while, I'm getting my HP back. And I can simply go to Tyranitar on the Zapdos. The reason being is that Tyranitar is very expendable at this point, but I'm going to go for a Pursuit to just get some damage on that Zapdos, because I know it's switching out. I'm going to go for Pursuit against the Claydol as well, just to get some more damage on it. And sack the Tyranitar off, as it's not that important for me. Starmie can come in, and I think Modest Surf should kill Claydol at this range. But in any case, we do catch the Registeel coming in. And I will go for it again, as the Registeel goes for Rest. That's not ideal. But Jirachi can simply come in, and while this Registeel is asleep, I can just go for the win against it. And thankfully, I have a Wish Jirachi against this particular team, because otherwise I would have been in some trouble with the substitute variant. Knowing that the Earthquake is not going to quite deal 50% to me, I'm actually going to take the damage with Ice Punch onto this Claydol. So I'll go for Surf, which obviously does not do very much to Registeel, but I can always go back to Jirachi, who, worst case scenario, is going to take a Seismic Toss. But I end up getting pretty much the best case scenario. As I Calm Mind. So Calm Mind, Ice Punch doesn't quite kill the Claydol, but I do get the freeze, and Claydol falls immediately. So, I mean, it's like, doesn't really matter. But this does mean that I can secure the kill on Claydol. And Chungy the Snorlax comes out. Zoomers need to stop playing ADV, okay? You stop it. If you were born after Pokemon Ruby came out, I'm gatekeeping this from you. You're not allowed to play anymore, okay? Because of nicknames like this. Come on now. Alright, so I go for Superpower here, and I don't quite kill the Snorlax because the -1 from me into the +2 from the Snorlax. Very unfortunate. Certainly was a roll, but it is what it is. Against this dastardly Snorlax, I can simply go back to Regirock, who's going to Choice Banded Boom into the Snorlax, leaving it at 8%, which is low enough that my Starmie can clean up here, which is great. Isn't that awesome, though, that even a +2 Snorlax is taking that much from a Choice Banded Boom? It's really cool. Starmie is going to sack itself off here to get some damage on the Zapdos. If I got a freeze there, then we would have been like in a perfect spot. But in any case, I'm going to Ice Punch with the Jirachi because it's more important for me to kill the Zapdos than it is for me to predict the Registeel. Because this Registeel has been sleep talking instead of just not doing anything to burn its sleep turns, it's going to stay asleep for an extra 2 turns. My opponent wisely decides to not sleep talk on that turn and switches out to Zapdos. Although I don't know how wise it was to switch to Zapdos, frankly. But now we're in Lastmon Registeel territory. But this Registeel is not going to beat my Jirachi. And we can simply go to fast mode because I'm just going to boost up to plus 10 million. In fact, we'll go to hyper fast mode. So I'll just boost up to plus 10 million and there's just nothing that the Registeel can do. You can't crit Seismic Toss. And unless I fall asleep or misclick on the turn I'm supposed to be wishing, then I should just win. Although my Thunderbolt only does 42%, my opponent is going to stall this game out very honorably, in fact, by going for rest. But obviously it doesn't matter, and I win the game. So yeah, there are a lot of permutations of this team. I guess showing that one off there with the Wish Jirachi instead of Sub is something of note. Do you think most of the rest of the team was probably the same? Although I may have had Spin on Fortress at this point. I'm not sure. Because I would have thought I would have boomed the Snorlax had I had Boom. But in any case, that has been the Regirock team. We'll see if I do well in the adjudication for Goofy Colt. In fact, this video is I'm recording this video on July 13th. I probably will be delaying it for a while because I don't want Goofy Colt or like any sort of like judging or anything to be swayed by my video coming out on this. So yeah, this may be coming out much later than it's being recorded, but nevertheless, I probably have put out some fire content and reached 10 million subscribers by the time that this comes out, so that's really cool, and thank you all for 10 million.